Hello and welcome to part one of our scholarship panels. My name is Erin Korsval. I manage scholarship programs for the Ronald Reagan Presidential Foundation and Institute. Welcome to the first of our three-part series on finding and applying for scholarships. We're so glad you've joined us. If you've joined us, you are probably a high school senior, maybe you're a parent, maybe you're an underclassman or even a guidance counselor. No matter who you are, we're so glad you've joined us. You may be wondering, why is the Ronald Reagan Foundation doing a presentation on scholarships? Well, I can tell you that the Reagan Foundation runs a number of scholarship programs for student leaders across the country. Those programs are open for application right now, so I encourage you to check out our website if you're interested in applying. But we know as part of our management of scholarship programs that people have questions all the time about how to find and successfully apply for scholarships. And we have a lot of information about that because we have awarded many scholarships throughout the years. So I'm really excited today to tap into some of those scholarship recipients who are going to share lots of great information with you about how to be successful in finding and applying for scholarships. Specifically today, we're going to talk about our very own GE-Reagan Foundation Scholarship Program. Now, this program is a $40,000 scholarship to student leaders from across the country. And we've been doing this scholarship program since 2011. So we're going to take some time today to walk through the application, tell you a little bit about what to expect, and then we're going to hear directly from a member of our selection committee and two recent scholars. But to do all of that, I'd like to introduce our moderator extraordinaire, Tim Land. Tim moderates these sessions for us, and we're so glad he does. Tim is from Washington State. He is a Stanford grad, and one of the many things that he is currently doing, I'll read it for you. He's working with USAID Armenia on creating an electricity trading platform. That's just one of many things he's doing right now. We're super proud of Tim and all of our scholars. So Tim, I'm going to turn it over to you to get started.
Thanks so much, Erin, and thank you all for tuning in and watching. It's incredibly exciting to have you all watching alongside us here, and we have an incredible team of panelists, and we're hopefully going to share both some high-level information about the scholarship, our scholarship, as we all refer to it. We're all a big family here, and some very specific, actionable information that you, as potential GE-Reagan scholars, can apply to your life as you prepare for this scholarship. So Erin introduced me, I introduce Erin. Erin Korsval is the scholarship program manager with the Ronald Reagan Presidential Foundation and Institute. We also have Tony Denhart, who's the university relations director at GE and one of the key individuals in this entire scholarship selection process. Then we have Brandon Fauble, who is a GE-Reagan class of 2014 scholar, and he is currently a senior analyst with power, utilities, and renewables at Wells Fargo. And then finally, we have Tarun Marthiswaran, who is currently at Stanford University. So shout out Tarun there for representing Stanford. And he plans to major in biology and computer science, and he was a GE-Reagan Scholar class of 2021. Now, in this session, like Erin said, we will focus on specifically how students can apply to the GE-Reagan Foundation Scholarship, which myself and Tarun and Brandon all received. So be sure to tune in for the next 2 weeks for sessions where all of us will talk more broadly about finding and applying for scholarships. But first, we're focusing on our program. So Erin, how about you introduce some of the detailed specifics about how you apply to become a GE-Reagan Scholar?
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Tim. We love our program and love our scholars, so we're really thrilled to share it with all of you. As I mentioned, this program was started in 2011. It was started to honor the legacy of President Ronald Reagan. President Reagan was an employee of GE back in the 1950s, and that is the origin of the connection between General Electric and the Ronald Reagan Presidential Foundation and Institute. So this program is open to high school seniors who are planning to attend college next year. These students that we're looking for must demonstrate at school, at the workplace, and within the community the attributes of leadership, drive, integrity, and citizenship. And I know our panelists are going to talk a lot more about what that actually means a little later. We're looking for Ronald Reagan's, not Albert Einstein's. So the minimum GPA is 3.0, but we are not necessarily looking for all class valedictorians. The program is open to citizens of the United States, and we are looking for seniors, again, who are attending high school right now in the United States, plan to graduate in the spring, and plan to attend a four-year college or university in the United States in the upcoming fall. The application process starts in October, so the application is open right now if you are watching when this goes live in December 2021. And the 2022 program will close for applications on January 6, 2022. I will mention that again because it's a very important date, so that you want to make sure that you get your application in on time. We use Scholarship America to help us manage our application. So the way that you would find our application is to go to our website, which is reaganfoundation.org. And if you navigate to the education section under scholarships, you will see the GE-Reagan Foundation Scholarship Program. Simply click Begin Application, and you will go ahead and get started through the Scholarship America portal. So through the Scholarship America portal, the very first thing that you will see is information about our program. You will see the full eligibility requirements. You will see information about the awards themselves and all other details about our program. It's a good overview. Make sure that you're reading all of that information. Once you've done that, you are ready to get started and you can log in. You'll want to create an account through Scholarship America. And the great thing about this is once you have an account, you can apply for other scholarships within the Scholarship America portal that you might be eligible for. So within our application, I will give you an idea of what we're going to be looking for so you can have some of these materials handy when you get started with your application, but you can always save your application and go back and finish it later. You just want to make sure that you're finishing it by January 6th. So first up, you'll just answer some very basic questions about yourself. Are you a citizen? Where did you hear about the program? And just certify some information and opt in to receive news about our program. You're going to put some information in there about your parent or guardian, just contact information. This is helpful because sometimes we have a hard time contacting our applicants or semifinalists, and we want to make sure that we can reach you if we're looking for some more information. So you'll want to put that information into the application. Then you'll include some information about your high school experience. Where did you go to high school? The city, state, what type of school was it? Some basic information about your high school. We'll ask you for your GPA. We don't need your transcript yet, just semifinalists will provide their transcript. And we'll also ask for your counselor's information so that we can verify that information. Also, when you're going to be graduating, and remember that this program is open to high school seniors currently. Now, if you're not a high school senior and you're listening to this, don't tune out because this information is going to be applicable to you in years ahead. So we hope that you bookmark this application and come back to it when you are eligible. Now we're going to want to know where you're going to college. So the easiest way to do that is to search for your school using the little Find Your School tool. You can add a keyword and search by state and include some basic information about your college. Now, a very common question that we get is, well, I don't know where I'm going to go to college yet. I haven't been accepted or I haven't decided. No problem whatsoever. Put your first choice in. We can always make an update if we need to later. But we're also going to want to know what you're studying and when you plan to graduate. Now we have finally entered the meat of the application. Now here is where you can tell us what makes you you, what makes you the leader that you are, and why should you receive this award. So the first section in which we do this is the extracurricular portion. You are going to list up to 10 extracurricular activities. Most of these are probably activities that you do in school or within the community. This gives you an opportunity to list the years in which you participated, any leadership positions, any awards that you received in relation to these activities. And I encourage you to be thorough and include those leadership roles. We not only want to know that you are a participant in something, but we would love to see if you stood up and participated as a leader in some of those roles. So again, list up to 10 activities. Focus on the ones that you were highly engaged in or a big leader in. Put those up front, but you can list up to 10. Now, the next section is for volunteer activities. Certainly, community service is a part of this award, so we want to know where you have served the community. So please list the organizations that you've been involved in. This could be a one-time service project. This could be an ongoing service project. This gives you the opportunity to include when you serve this organization, for how long, how many hours, and again, any sort of leadership roles or awards that you received as part of your service. Those two sections are really important because our program is really built on leadership and service, and we would love to see how you've led and served at school, in the community, and around you. Now, we're also going to ask for work experience. If you have work experience, we'd love for you to include it here. So this is any kind of paid employment. We'll be asking when you started that employment and when you finished it. And that just gives us a better picture of what you're working with in terms of your time commitment with other activities. Now, financial information. This is the biggest question that we get. And right here, we're not asking for a ton of information. We are asking for some basic information that is typically on the first 2 pages of, if you are dependent of your parents' tax returns. So we're going to ask you, if you are a dependent, what is your state of residency, and your parents typically with their adjusted gross income. We're just looking for a number here. And if you are a semifinalist, we will ask for some more detailed information. But at this time, we're just looking for some very, very high level information. We understand that there are a lot of extenuating circumstances, and we can capture that here in this section. Now, we will be asking you to describe your leadership and service in an essay. So there is an essay that allows you to expand a little bit more on the extracurricular activities or volunteer service that you listed. And I really encourage you to use this as an opportunity to give very specific examples and kind of make your application come alive and share what makes your leadership and service unique. You'll also have an opportunity to share with us what your goals are for the future, where you plan to attend school, if you know what you plan to study, what you want to do with your life. So this is a great opportunity for you to showcase to us what you hope to do and how you hope to lead and serve in the future. Finally, if there are any unusual circumstances affecting you or your family, maybe there's a medical issue or some sort of issue that's affecting your family, we would love to know about that. You can include that information here. It's not required, but if there is something that we should know about, you absolutely can include that. And that's it. That's the basic application for the first round. You'll certify that all this information is true. You will digitally sign it and submit it. And then you will receive an email from us saying, yes, we got it. Make sure that you add Scholarship America to your list of approved senders so that you receive all of those emails from us, and then you're good to go. In February, we will notify you whether you are a semifinalist or not a semifinalist. Semifinalists will be, as I said, asked to include some additional details for their application, and then they'll continue on through the process throughout the spring. We announce recipients in April, and recipients will each receive a $10,000 scholarship that's renewable for up to 3 additional years, so $40,000 total. And recipients are also invited to a scholars retreat at the Reagan Library in California. So, Tim, that's a lot of information, overview of the 2022 GE-Reagan Foundation Scholarship Program. But now I know we want to hear from our panelists about what this all means for our applicants and how they can shine in the process.
Well, thanks so much, Erin. And if you're watching this and you are currently in the application cycle, here's my recommendation. Pause this video or rewind, because that 10-minute period that Erin just gave was a complete and comprehensive overview of everything that you need to prepare to submit and potentially become a GE-Reagan Scholar. So pause the video and write down what she said and start making an action plan. The deadline is approaching soon, and you really want to take the time to think through each one of those sections and start coming up with ideas. So put that all on a piece of, large piece of poster paper maybe, and then restart the video, and then we'll maybe hopefully give you some tips to add to that vision board as you're planning. And I think the perfect place to start with giving the appropriate advice is a man who is partly in charge of choosing, the future GE-Reagan scholars, and that's Tony. So Tony, you have reviewed many applications over the years. So in your opinion, what makes a strong candidate for the GE-Reagan Scholarship?
Tim, thanks. There's a lot that goes into that. You're going to hear all of us touch on, leadership, integrity, drive, and citizenship throughout this discussion. And that is embedded in every answer that I'm going to provide today. And it's something that you should always be thinking about. But when we are looking at the applications, it's, some of the things that really help stand out. There's a lot that stands out, but, those applications that tell a story, that flow well, those stand out. Think of it, Aaron mentioned they come alive, and I kind of see that as they have personality, right? But it's just like you're bringing us into your world, into your past, and all the impacts and great things that you've done. That's a high level. Other things, as you're reflecting and telling your story, what has made, your school experience special, or what separates you from the other applicants? Those really, really stand out. And Aaron kind of touched on a couple things, and I zoom in and I really zoom into, has an experience in your life changed you, right? And, if it has, tell us about it, bring that story to life. And then I could drill in, Aaron was talking about, when you're volunteering or your extracurricular involvement or the jobs you've held, what I want to highlight here is, what have you done? Not that you're a part of a group, but what impact have you had? What difference have you made? Your dedication, right? How long have you been involved in this, extracurricular activity, or this, maybe you started up a student organization, right? How long have you been doing it? Have you demonstrated consistency? Have you stuck with it for a long time? And, one other thing I will add is, tell us about when you've tripped and you fell and you had a failure, right? I'll give you an insight right now, and again, I'm going to step way forward to the interview. I'm going to ask you about a time you failed. That is a good thing. We all learn from those past experiences, whether they're good or maybe you had a bump in the road. So Tim, those are just a few items that I wanted to highlight, but super important.
That's great. That's great. The GE-Reagan Scholarship is interesting because it specifically defines the 4 pillars that they're looking for in potential recipients of the award. I'm not going to ask you about leadership because I think that that's going to flow through, and generally students know what leadership looks like at the high school level. But drive and integrity and citizenship are slightly more abstract concepts. So let's start with drive. Can you give me some examples of applications that you've read where drive really shone through?
So I'll say a couple things. Aaron mentioned goals, right? As they're walking through their goals and they're telling that story, as they list their goals, they kind of have that can-do attitude, right? It's anything is possible, that their glass is half full and overflowing in some cases. When you look again at that drive, and you'll hear us talk about this, talking about, themselves, their families, and their communities, right? And, as they convey that, aspiration to advance all 3 of those things, not just themselves, but throwing in their families, or including their families and their communities also. And, and that drive, work ethic will come into play there. And how are they, one of the questions I ask scholars, and some of these scholars probably heard it from me, is like, when do you sleep? Balancing, how do you manage your time? And we'll see that come through in that drive, because you can overdo it.
Yeah. Okay, excellent. Oh, sorry, Tony, keep going.
No. And then I was just going to, touch on, citizenship, and, this can, I go back to President Reagan, and I'll say a few things. And if, when I'm thinking about, when I'm looking at the applications, I'm like, when I read it and after I'm done, do I picture President Reagan right there? Right. And if you look at President Reagan's attributes, do I see that? Right. And I don't know which one's number one with President Reagan, but I would put citizenship right up there at the top, and how, he envisioned a society where individual liberty, economic opportunity, global democracy, and national pride are cherished. So if you're thinking about President Reagan, how can you bring out your citizenship there? And then the last one that I'll end on is integrity. And that's a thread that will stick through your entire life, high school, from the time you're born until the time you retire, let's say. That's one that is a piece of the foundation that you will always have no matter where you're at. Yeah. With that, a part of that integrity, will spin up, a combination of, maybe self-confidence and humility. And what I would add there is, what we've seen is, often, there are sacrifices to support the overall needs ahead of your own. So those are some of the things around those three items.
Okay, thanks, Tony.
You bet.
Tarun, I want to really keep driving into these pillars because Tony gave a really great overview, but I want to ask you specifically about integrity. When you were writing your application, what were you trying to project to show your integrity in and have it flow through your application?
Sure. So for integrity, I think I mainly focused on my school involvement because one of the main pillars of my school was showing integrity in the classroom and through all the activities that you are involved in. And I think when writing the essays that were framed around that are listing my activity involvement, I tried to keep in mind those school pillars and how I've embodied those by leading different clubs at my school or being involved with tutoring other students at my school and other things that I think we're able to demonstrate integrity as a value rather than something that people just take lightly, and how integrity can be transferred into performing better in your activities and performing better when helping others and running successful organizations and things like that.
Excellent. And Brandon, the same question for you with citizenship. What is that? How did you take that abstract concept and get specific in your application with it?
Absolutely. I think one of the things that was great with the Reagan application, right? You mentioned it at the top, Tim. There are 4 really main pillars that you can focus on and create and find those experiences in your story. And then how do you tie them to these things? And for citizenship, for me, I look at my experience in the Boy Scouts. And, I was on the leadership side, I was the senior patrol leader for 2 consecutive years leading my troop. But a big part of the Boy Scouts, right, is giving back to your community and finding and doing those projects. And so my Eagle Scout kind of project that I did to earn that rank was I went to my local church and they had talked about a cemetery that hadn't been really upkept for 30 years. It was overgrown. A lot of the stones were, you couldn't even find a lot of things that was in there. And, I'm sitting here as a 16, 17-year-old kid, right? Being like, well, man, I've never upkept a cemetery, did this stuff. I had work experience mowing lawns, doing that kind of stuff, but how am I going to tackle this? And the biggest thing that I looked at was, well, okay, there's people in my community who have this experience. So I'm going to reach out, I'm going to find them. I'm going to go meet with those people and I'm going to learn from them, what do I need to do to solve this and to clean this up? And, particularly these stones, right, that are in the cemetery, some of them are 100 years old. I can't just go around and scrub anything on them. I have to figure out what kind of chemicals can we use to get moss off of this? How are we going to do that? And then taking back to my leadership experience, leading my troop, finding the people in my troop who are going to help me do this so we can accomplish this project. Mm-hmm. And just all of those things that I can wrap into and think about how I was giving back. And then just the last anecdote, as I went through this process, there was a woman who I'd met through just working on this, she was the last person the church had paid to mow the lawns and upkeep the cemetery 30 plus years ago. And to sit down and talk with her and hear about the stories of what she was doing, some of the families who are actually in that cemetery, that was a great part to me and something that I wanted to be like, hey, when they ask about citizenship, this is what I'm going to highlight in my application.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. Okay, here's my overview, and then I want to hear if you agree with my take on this, of how I see these things flowing through. So leadership, that's pillar number one. That's saying I'm an applicant. I want to be a leader. I have a vision for something that can make a positive impact. And so I'm going to lead the effort to do this. Okay. Drive comes in second by whenever you step up to the plate to try and do something, there's going to be challenges. There are going to be people working against you. There's going to be lots of challenges. And so I have the willingness and the drive to fight through that and keep going. Then you have the citizenship aspect that Brandon highlighted really well, where it's coalition building. This isn't hero ball. This isn't just me out there just being by myself. This is working with your community or a community somewhere else to work together to solve something. And then the integrity part comes in by saying, I may be the leader. I may have been the one who started this, but I'm not claiming all of the credit for it. I'm not taking this and making this about me. I'm making it about the other people and about the work itself. So that's how I would think about all four of those pillars. Do you have anything, any of you, Tony, maybe let's start with you, to add to sort of that approach to thinking about all four pillars?
Tim, I think between all three of you, you've done a great job providing that overview and drilling into it. So you've done a great job. So really nothing to add that hasn't been said there.
Okay. Tarun, Brandon, I want to give you a chance to add to that.
Yeah, I think the other thing that I'd highlight with this, and this is just something in the applications, right? The humility and how can you show that in some of this, because I think that ties to integrity. And the first part I think about is when you're working on these applications, it can be really hard to try to look through your resume and figure out how am I going to talk about this, and without bragging about it. But this is one thing where I think you can go through and like in my example of my application, I talked about how I played football. I played football in college. I was a pretty good football player. So naturally became the captain of the football team, leadership, doing that kind of thing. In basketball, I was the last person off the end of the bench, right? I didn't play, but I had a key role to our team. If we're going to go play a team that was playing, a school that had a 6'5" guy who could, power and play that role, I had to come and practice that and imitate that in practice to help my team. And so I talked about in my application, like that experience and understanding how to be the star player and how to be the last guy on the team and being able to intertwine and connect with all those players on my team. So when we had a football game coming up, I could go to the practice squad guys and say, hey, this is what I need you to do. This is your role. This is how you're going to help us win, and tie that back. Finding those kinds of things and thinking about in your experiences, how can you not only find these four values, but then show those kinds of things that are those intangibles that'll make you different in the application. I think that really helps.
Yeah, that's excellent. That's excellent. Tarun, a question, and it's just a natural transition. So one of the things that is really interesting about this scholarship application is that it gives you the opportunity to highlight work experience and also how family is important. And so how did you weave those opportunities into your application to build off of these four key pillars that make up the scholarship?
Yeah, that's a great question. So when talking about my work experience for the application, a lot of the things I did for work, and that goes along with like internships and other activities I was involved in outside of school, were mainly focused on either being a research intern or working for my family's business, or working independently. And my family's business is in the education industry. My mom owns Kumon Centers, and for those of who don't know what that is, it's basically just like an education center focused on math and reading for students and the elementary school age. And I was involved in helping a lot there, being like a grader for their work or just helping my mom in times where the center got very busy. And I think being involved in that really helped me see how hardworking my mom and my parents really are, and what they have to do just to give me and my siblings the best opportunities we can. So I wanted to highlight the fact that I worked there and helped my parents out, and what I learned from that in my application. And from working in things such as that, it inspired me kind of just to go on my own and start working in these organizations that I talked about in my application that relate to education and youth mentorship. And whether that's one-on-one tutoring or working in a larger organization, I think the reason that I chose to start those in the first place, and the reason that what inspired me to be involved in those, was watching my mom and her passion for helping younger students in Kumon and just in general. and translating that into my life after working in Kumon and just wanting to emulate kind of the feelings that my mom had towards youth mentorship and education.
That's awesome. Thanks, Tarun. So Tony, you get the privilege of interviewing the finalists. So what makes a successful finalist interview?
Tim, great question. It's actually, when I look at this program, and I've talked to the other folks on the selection committee, and that's the interview process is one of the things we enjoy the most because it gives us an opportunity to get to know the scholar applicants, get to know the applicants, and Alex Dimitrov, who's on the committee, he and I were having a conversation once, and we both enjoy just having a conversation, putting the scholars at ease and just kicking back. And, I remember Alex talking about a conversation with one of the applicants about tennis, right? It kind of went off the side, but it's really just be yourself. We have so much fun with the interviews that it's not meant to be drilling down. Yeah, we're going to ask some questions, but if you made it that far, you're going to knock it out of the park. And I talked about one of the questions that I asked during the interview, and it's about failure. So, I'll give you an insight. If you're going to be talking to me, I want to understand a situation that you've been through, and I want you to drill down a little bit, but it's meant to be a conversation. We're going to review the application, and we're going to try to pull some things out. So like, for example, maybe I'll throw a couple out there, like with Brandon, there's two things that he had there. I grew up in the middle of a cornfield. So FFA rings home with me, and I remember that. And then the Boy Scouts, and as he was talking about, earlier, his Eagle Scout project, and, how he went out into the community to talk to the community, to understand what the community was thinking about the cemetery, that kind of, took me back to, President Reagan and some of his attributes, that hit home. And then with Tarun, the scientific research, that's not easy. And the amount of, I don't say roadblocks, or maybe it's better said, challenges that you have as you're going through scientific research, that can-do attitude, being able to drive through it is huge to that. And then Tim, yourself, a lot of that community involvement and engagement, really looking at your application and then just drilling down a little bit more to understand what makes you tick and, what drives you to be so engaged in the community. Again, just going back to, it's just a conversation, and that's what it's about. And we try to put the applicants at ease out of the gate so that we can truly have that conversation, and we only get so much time. And, before we know it, we're at the end of the time. I know myself, I'll run over, and it's also a time for the applicants to ask us some questions. So I know all of us, try to have that conversation, but then we always try to wrap with giving the applicant an opportunity to ask any question that they may have.
That's excellent advice, and very specific. So thank you, Tony. So let's wrap up here. But Brandon and Tarun, I want to hear from both of you, starting with Brandon. So right now, applicants have a few weeks to prepare, write, put together, review the 2022 application. What are your top tips right now for applicants to be doing?
The best thing that I did, and this was advice that I got beginning of my freshman year, and I thank the leaders that I had, get a spreadsheet, get something, Tim, you joked at the top of the cast, like, you have this big board to like plan everything out. But like, seriously, if you put in the work and you sit there and you look at how many volunteer hours did I actually do in this activity, or, list out all your activities and list what you actually did with that, it's going to make it a lot easier for you when you have just that little bit of space in the essay to figure out, what am I going to highlight? How am I going to tie this back? And what do I want to talk about to tell my story? So that'd be the first thing I'd say is like, hey, go out. Whether it's a spreadsheet, whether it's a big board, whatever works best for you to organize things, go and do that so you're fully prepared to fill out this application.
Excellent. And Tarun, same question for you.
I think Brandon gave some really great advice. Having just applied for this scholarship last year, I still kind of remember the process of working on this simultaneously with other things that were going on at the time, and more specifically with college applications. And I would say, while working on college applications, you're already kind of in this mindset of thinking about all the activities, like awards and work experiences that you have. And so that's a little helpful when applying for scholarships, and more specifically this scholarship. However, I encourage when you're applying for the Reagan Scholarship to think a bit more deeply about how your activities can connect with Reagan's values, and specifically like look into the application to see what they want rather than just copying and pasting something that you may have written for your college application. And I think that would be my biggest advice, but also I would recommend to be on top of everything, especially with deadlines, because quite often you can find yourself nearing a deadline and you haven't written up any of your activities or your awards, or you haven't given them much thought about how I just mentioned how they can relate to Reagan's values and just the values of the program in general. And I think giving the application a bit more leeway, doing it a lot more with a lot of time in advance can help promote you to think about the things that were special about your activities, or special about your honors, and how the program might see those as valuable. And yeah, I mean, just if you were to be on top of everything, and everything's going to go pretty smoothly, is what I've learned from applying this last year.
Yeah, and that's great. And just to build off of that, Tarun, I think that when you mention the copying and pasting aspect with other scholarships, there are a lot of scholarships out there that are just looking for highest GPA, most activities that you were involved in. Oh, you did, a really impressive scientific project, something like that. That's not what this program is about. This program is about people and the qualities that make up humanity in a positive way. And so you need to put some serious thought into that, because, Tony and the other selection committee will be able to see that shine through if you really spend your time focusing on that aspect. So thank you, Tony. Thank you, Tarun. Thank you, Brandon. Aaron, I hand it back over to you.
Well, thank you so much, Tim, for leading us through that. And thank you to each of our panelists. I couldn't agree with you all more. That was spot on. This program is about people, and it is about characteristics that are really, really important to our society. So it's not it's not an accident that those 4 pillars that were chosen for this program, leadership, drive, integrity, citizenship, they were chosen to be representative of President Ronald Reagan. And those characteristics are in our applicants, and we want to see those characteristics shine through. So as Tarun was saying, connect those to who President Reagan was and who you are and who you want to be as a leader and as a person. So I also want to point out that this is a nonpartisan scholarship program. So while it does bear the name of President Ronald Reagan, we're looking for those 4 characteristics: leadership, drive, integrity, and citizenship. So just a little bit of housekeeping. Again, thank you so much, panelists. We have 2 more sessions for you that will be released over the next 2 weeks in December. So I encourage you to check those out. Those will focus much more on how you can find other scholarships and how you can be successful in standing out among selection committees for other programs as well. So check those out. Follow us on social media or visit our website to tap into those. And don't miss the deadline. If you are a high school senior and you think, yeah, I think I want $40,000 to go to college, I think I could be a good candidate for this program, start today. Get started today, because if you do have questions, we want to make sure that those get answered before our deadline. So get started today, and we really look forward to reading your application. So thank you to our panelists. Hope we have some future GE-Reagan Foundation scholars out there watching us now. Thank you all.